Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're down at work again and we finally get a chance to get back onto our little Farmall F14. Today I'm going to show you how to scrape off the ridge on top of the cylinder here. This cylinder has almost no ridge on it at all, but if we don't scrape the ridge off, when we put new rings and bearings and stuff in, we've got a good chance of breaking the top ring on the ridge here if we don't remove it first, and then we're going to hone out the cylinders as well. We have actually decided to replace all the sleeves in this. We have 3 really good ones, and there's nothing wrong with them, and then we have this 4th one here that's had a bit of water in it, and it would probably clean up all right. But we can get new sleeves for this really easily, so we are going to replace it. The other reason that we're going to replace it is that it looks like they're leaking around the O-rings in the bottom a little bit, and that leaks water down into the sump. It gives very similar problems to when you've got a blown head gasket. You end up with water in your sump, and it can be quite hard to find the problem. So these all need to come out anyway to replace those O-rings. You can take the sleeves out and put them back in, but you need to get them back in exactly the same spot. If we twist them a little bit, the wear patterns will be in the wrong spot and can cause issues. So we're just going to put new ones in, but today I'll show you how to scrape off the ridge and how to hone it out. Okay, so this is our ridge scraping tool here. Normally it has an O-ring around here that sort of holds everything together, but that's perished, and so I've just got to hold it together a little bit. It has a cutting blade here that rubs on the very top part of the cylinder. There's a little pad down here that just helps to angle the blade out on the cylinder wall so you're not damaging any of the worn part of the cylinder. This blade is sprung loaded, so there's 2 springs in here to help push it out. We've got a bolt up here that we do up, and that expands all the cutters and the other parts. So there's the cutter here, and then there's 2 other bits on this side here with rollers on that roll on the cylinder wall, and at the top of the cylinder sits on this ridge here. So we're going to put it in the cylinder, do this up and put a bit of spring pressure on the cutting face. Just wind it up a bit before we get it in there. Drop it in, tighten it up a bit so that spring pressure is keeping that cutting face against the cylinder wall. And then we will put a socket on this outer piece here and we turn it. Our T-bar on here makes it even easier to do this. And we just keep turning it until we've gradually scraped that ridge off. It's not a quick process, but we don't want to take too much off either. I'm just going to pull it out now and we'll have a little bit of a look in there. Okay, so if we come in close here, we can see the ridge comes down to about here. We have just taken this little top bit off here. So we've got quite a long way to go, even though this is only a really small ridge. We've got quite a long way to go. So I'm going to put it in and we'll keep going until we've scraped that off. Okay, that's looking pretty good in there now. I'm just going to Just going to back it right off and just put a very light bit of pressure on and go around again just to make sure we haven't got any chips on there. Okay, that's pretty good now. Okay, if we come in here close, we can see that we have scraped the shiny bit is where we've scraped it down to, so we're just on the edge of where the ridge was there. We've got no ridge left to break a piston ring on when we put this back together. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to hone the cylinder out. Now this takes all the glaze off the inside of the cylinder here. If the cylinder walls are too polished, the rings actually don't seal on it as properly, and you get a lot of blow-by, or you get your compression leaking down into the sump. This can, if you've got aluminium pistons, this can burn out your pistons. And it makes you lose power and engine efficiency. So we want a nice cross-hatching pattern on the cylinder. When we put new rings in, this also helps the rings to bed into the cylinder wall and to get a good seal. Now there's two different types of hones we can use. There's this type here which is called a ball hone, or a bottle brush hone, or a toilet brush hone by some people. These are really good. These ones follow your cylinder wall really well. So if you've got a slightly worn cylinder that's a little bit oval or something like that, these ones are the best ones to use. But the problem with them is they don't have a very big range on each one. So this one here is for a 4 1/8 inch diameter bore. And it's way too big to fit in this one. I think this goes from 4 inches to about 4 1/4 inches. So you need quite a big collection of these if you're working on different types of machinery. The more common type that you see in the home workshop is these ones. They've got stones on here, and you can get these in 3 different grades. You can get a fine, a medium and a coarse, depending on how much you need to hone your cylinder. Now these are far more variable. They squash up quite small. They've got an adjustment here to keep spring pressure on it, but they will spread out to about a 6-inch bore, I think it is. They've got another adjustment here which just stops them spreading out too much when you're doing a little small bore like this one. So they go in there like that. We put a drill on the top, and we just want to rotate them slowly and bring them up and down with a reasonable amount of oil in here to help them cut. These are oil stones on here, so we need to keep a reasonable amount of oil on them. I'm going to go and get the drill and set this up now so that we can do this. Okay, so we're just going to start by putting a fair bit of oil, nice bit of oil on our cylinder, all the way around, right up the top, and we want to make sure that the whole cylinder wall is nice and evenly covered. So we've got our hone set up on our drill. Now we want to squeeze it in when we push it down, because we don't want to put vertical scratches in our bores as we're pushing it into place. And then we just want a very low speed, and we want to go up and down and make sure, as we go up and down, we want to make sure we get right down to the bottom of the cylinder and right up to the top here. Okay, so this is cleaned up quite nicely just from that small amount of honing. We've still got a little mark in here, which is probably where the piston was sitting and the rings were sitting for so many years. But you can see on here we've got a nice cross-hatch pattern. That's what we're looking for all the way up and down the cylinder at the end of this process. Don't be tempted to go too far. If you hone too much out, you actually will make the cylinder bigger, and then your pistons won't fit as well. You can over hone things. I'm just going to give it a little bit more and see if I can get that mark out, and a little bit more further down the cylinder, right down the bottom of the cylinder there, and that will probably do it. Okay, so our cylinder has cleaned up quite nicely. We can see we have very nice cross-hatching pattern here from the hone. The mark where the ridge was has completely gone. The cross-hatching comes all the way up to the top. We do have a mark down here that was probably where the top piston ring was sitting, and a mark a little bit further down here where probably the oil ring was sitting. That bottom mark doesn't actually go all the way around the cylinder, so that shows that this cylinder is worn a little bit oval. Cylinders always wear a little bit in an oval direction, in the direction the pistons tend to slop backwards and forwards. But this has come up very nicely. This would be a perfectly serviceable cylinder now for what we want to use this tractor for. But as I said before, we are going to put new pistons and rings in here, new liners and pistons and rings in here. So we'll do that in another video. I just thought I would show you how to use a hone and a ridge scraper quickly before I pulled these ones out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.